Class 10 for Machlok, from Machloket to Rebellion, History of Jewish Opposition. So here we go, our final Mishnah, Ben Sorer or Moreh. I asked the question in class 2 weeks ago that the Mishnayot that we've studied have taught us about certain things concerning Ben Sorer or Moreh, but our Mishnayot have also not taught us certain things about Ben Sorer or Moreh, and I asked you to consider this, a couple ideas of what that might be. And I guess one of the things that struck me was we never learned about anything about, we heard about actions, things that the Ben Serem did or does. We don't hear anything about thought, anything about what's going on in that Ben Serer Omerez's mind. And I wonder why you think that is. Why is it that we've stayed away from the idea of what someone is thinking? And that's question number one. And question number two is, what might that say, in some sense, about the larger philosophy of Judaism in general, of what we are pointing to determine someone's guilt or innocence, someone being patur or chayav, and what we're not looking at? So give me kind of a sense of what you think that might be. And I guess where I'm coming from here is that one of the key distinctions between Christianity and Judaism is that Christianity and other religions are about acceptance of ideas, whereas Judaism is, in a sense, not so much about an idea or a philosophical thought, but is really about action. It's very action based. You define kind of your commitments to Judaism not based upon what it is you believe up here, but what it is you're doing or not doing with your hands. I find that really, really very interesting. So here are the kind of the words that you're going to need to know. And again, we keep on going over this because on your final exam, these will be the words that you'll be responsible for as well. So I think it's good to go over. Again, I'm not going to test you on them right now, but if we just look at the kind of stubborn and rebellious son, ben surah moresh, and emar, as it says in the Torah, chayav is guilty, exempt is patur. You don't need. We didn't really go over what a katan is, but a katan is younger. Meat is basar, wine is yain. A command, God commanded deed is a sin, is a mitzvah, and the opposite of that, a sin, is an avera. These are good words to know. To stole is ganav. Space is reshut. Suitable or fit is ra'ui, and according to his end, which we're going to look at today, is this word al shem sofo. Al shem is because of, sofo hasof shalo, his end. So let's just start by reading this mission again. We went over it a little bit in class. Ben Surah Mareh, let him be judged al shem sofo. And we've just learned before, al shem sofo is according to his end or his future. Let him die innocent, and don't let him die chayav. Don't let him die in some way guilty. So first of all, what does the first row of our Mishnah even mean? We went over some ideas about this in class. According to this Mishnah, why in fact and this is kind of the second question here, why in fact are we judging someone as guilty? Okay, and now I'd like you to go to take this right. We're going to this right here, and I'll put it also in the chats. You can copy it there, or in the notes you can copy it there on edpuzzle. And these are the questions I'm going to be asking when you view those first almost 2 minutes of what Rav Schwarzberger has to say. These three questions are what I'm looking for, and you'll see him answer kind of each of those three questions as well. Again, he's going on to the Gemara of what our Mishnah, but he's going to basically beforehand, he's going to summarize and talk a little bit, and the Gemara kind of asks a very similar question of how can it be v'ki mipnei she'achal ze tarte mar basar v'shata chatzi log haitaki amra Torah yatsa lebeit din v'lisachel. Right, so are you really going to tell me that if someone eats that much meat and drinks that much wine, Italian wine, that you actually should take him to the Beit Din and have him stoned to death? What is going on here, right? And that's kind of like a little bit about what's going on in our mind as well. And again, the answer is ledun al shem sofo, right? According to his end or his future, and we're going to be discussing. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so we had this first question about the Mishnah, which we already tried to answer, and um, right. So right, why are we right? We already answered that. So this idea, let him die innocent, don't let him die chayav. This idea should strike you as a bit crazy. What is wrong with such a claim? Okay, that's a question. And when you are killing this person, has that person done enough to warrant being killed? Okay. That should give you kind of a hint on what the answer is. And why would Judaism ever allow us to kill someone before they are chayav, before they actually reached a level of guilt, right? Okay. To answer question number two, even though you gave it kind of your gut answer, we need to look at a piece of Gemara in another part of the Talmud. And this piece of the Gemara of a Gemara that we'll look at today talks about the question why bad things happen to good people. And the answer that it provides may help us in understanding our Mishnah. So here we go. Here we go. And before we look at this piece of Talmud or Gemara, I'd like us to look for a second about some of the ideas that are kind of out there in the kind of Jewish realm of ideas about why bad things happen to good people. Which idea do you agree with most here? And please explain why. And you'll remember some of these ideas from ninth grade JS, right? Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, we get what we deserve. There's a purpose or a reason for our suffering, and God knows it, and we have to figure it out. Suffering occurs at a point in our lives when we're prepared for it. God has a grand master plan into which all of our lives fit. On an individual level, God's pattern of reward and punishment seem arbitrary. If we look at the world from God's vantage point, everything fits into place. Suffering is a test of our faith. God tests only those who she knows is capable of handling it. Suffering liberates us from the world of pain and leads us to a better place. God does not cause our suffering, but he stands by ready to help people cope with their tragedies, or we suffer in order to become better people. Which of these ideas most resonates with you and why? I asked this question because now we're going to get a very classical Jewish answer to this question, and it might help us with our understanding of our Mishnah back here, which is Yamut Zechai ve'al Yamut Chayav. Let him die innocent and don't let him die guilty. All right. So let's check it out. So one more piece of background information knowledge you need to understand for this piece of Talmud, and that is Gehenna. And what I'd like you to do is please read over what this says about Gehenna and give me a summary in the question sheet. Okay. So the Talmud now is going to answer the question, why do bad things happen to good people? And this is found in Barachot, Masechet Brachot, Tractate Brachot, 7a, right? Each page of Talmud has an A side and a B side. This is the A side, like a record, an A side and B side, 7a. Here we go. So first I'm going to set the stage. The Israelites just built the golden calf, which happened, interestingly enough, last week's Parsha. Noah Letterman talked about it, and Sam did too. God wants to destroy all the Israelites. Moshe says, save them. God says, okay. Moshe says, show me your face. God says, you can see my back, but not my face, because if you see my face, you'll die. And Moshe says, okay, that's fine. I'll see your back. All right. So the Gemara asks, when Moshe asked to see God's back, here, what was he really asking? And the Gemara answers, or Talmud answers, Moshe was asking God the following. God, answer me this. Why do bad things happen to good people? So question number one is, what's the connection with the words, God, show me your back and tell me why bad things happen to good people? So what might that phrase, show me your back, how did the rabbis understand show me your back means, God, tell me why bad things happen to good people? By the way, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm looking for an interesting creative answer here. Okay, and here's the answer number one that the Talmud gives in the mouth of God. So God says, answer number one. Here's my reason why bad things happen to good people. Children suffer because of the sins of their parents. Their parents have done something wrong, and the children are being punished because of this. Okay, and the rabbis have a problem with this because and they're saying, well, how can this be true? And they're saying, well, actually maybe it is partly true because The Torah does say, "I, God, will visit the sins of the parents on their children." So God does say that. So this could be why bad things happen. Like your bad things happen to you because of not what you've done, but your parents have done. But actually, no, 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 no. There's actually something in the Torah that totally contradicts this idea, because it also says in the Torah this. Of course, I haven't put it there, and I'm asking you the question: what will the Talmud need to say? What is the Talmud trying to find a verse from the Torah that in some way contradicts with this idea? And what might that be? Again, you don't have to look in the Torah to find it right now, but tell me what an idea that would contradict this right here. Okay, and here it is. It has to be an idea that says a child cannot be punished for the sins of its parents. So now we have this is a true contradiction. First of all, it says here, "I, God, will visit the sins of the parents on the children." And B, a child cannot be punished for the sins of his parents. Now, as we've seen before, one thing that the Talmud loves to do is it hates for two ideas to be out there and saying one's right and one's wrong. It actually loves to come up with ways that both can be right. So, what might be a way that both of these ideas can be right? Right? The Talmud hates contradiction. Can you figure out a situation in which both verses can be true? So, try to figure that out. And here's what they come up with. The Talmud's answer is sometimes that verse is true, and sometimes the other verse is true. Okay, but when might be those reasons why this verse might be true, and when might be the time when this might be true. Okay, so kind of show me. We'll call this A, and we'll call this B. Okay, when might that be? Give me situations when each might be true. Okay, and here's the answer the Talmud comes up with. Talmud says it all depends upon whether the child decides to follow the evil ways of his parents. When a child decides to follow the evil ways of his parents, then this verse is true. I, God, will visit the sins of the parents on their children. But when he doesn't or she doesn't, then this verse is true. And this is kind of interesting, right? When a child, so according to the Talmud's answer here, God punishes a child when they follow the evil ways of their parents. Um, Actually, I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to go on with my train of thought. Let's just go on. So, since either verse can work, Moses doesn't feel like he really got a great answer to the question, and so the Talmud asks again, "God, answer me this: why do bad things happen to good people?" And here, the answer to this question has to do with the idea of Gehenna. And because here's the answer it's given. It says, you can do your Gehenna time here on earth by suffering now instead of later. So here's kind of what we talked about with Gehenna. And tell me if you can kind of understand how that works. So give me an understanding of how that might work, doing your Gehenna time here on earth by suffering now instead of later. Okay, so if this is true about Gehenna time here on earth now instead of later, then explain the following. So, a good person who suffers here on earth, that suffering on earth will make his Gehenna time what? Shorter or longer? And this will allow a person to get to Olam Haba, the world to come, sooner or later. Circle one. Then a bad person who never suffers here on earth but has a great life, the suffering on earth makes the time in Gehenna shorter or longer, and this allows the person to get to Olam Haba sooner or later. Okay. Um, and let's do this one too. A good person who has a good life. Well, let's first go over these. So here we see. So a good person who suffers here on earth, that means that their time in Gehenna is shorter and they're getting to Olam Haba sooner. But a bad person who never suffers here on earth, we're making sure that anything that they have to suffer is done in Gehenna. So they have more time in this place called Gehenna. And this means that they're not getting to the world to come, Olam Haba, until later. Okay? What about a good person who has a good life? What are we saying? Why do they have a good life? This means that a person must be so good that what? Right, it must mean that a person is so good that they don't have anything, won't have any time in Gehenna, and they don't need to suffer in this earth because they're going really quickly from Gehenna to the world to come. And a bad person who has a bad life, why is that? Why are they doing that? It must mean that this person must be so bad that what? It means that they must be someone who's so bad that regardless of how much Gehenna that we eat up by giving them a bad life in this world, they're suffering in this world, they've done such bad that they're going to have the maximum time in Gehenna and going to be in Olam Haba later. All right. So again, see if you can kind of help me understand, according to this idea, why it is that a good person suffers, and why it is, number two, that a bad person doesn't suffer. Okay, good. So again, and the answers to those questions: a good person suffers because we want to maximize their time in Olam Haba, minimize their time in Gehenna, and so the suffering is basically reducing their Gehenna time later on here on Earth. And why does a bad person not suffer? Because we want to try to maximize their Gehenna time and elongate the amount of time that it takes them to get to Olam Haba. All right. So knowing what we now know, why would Judaism ever allow us to kill a child before they are chayav? Okay. And the answer really to this question is, well, if we are really all about trying to minimize Gehenna time, then if I get them guilty, I'm basically going to say, you're going to have a lot of Gehenna time. And so if I kill them before that, then I've given no reason for their time in Gehenna to be really a lot. And it gets them really quickly past Gehenna into Olam Haba, right? Now, by the way, what's really crazy is, according to this idea of Judaism, what does it mean even for someone like Hitler, who's like the worst person ever? How much time is their maximum time in Gehenna? And do they actually does a guy like Hitler get to Olam Haba, right? Which is kind of crazy, right? Okay. Question number two. Okay, so according to this idea that we're not judging someone on their present, but on what they will be in the future, should a high schooler be expelled for carrying but not using drugs at school? Please explain that. Okay. Question number three. What does this Mishnah seem to tell us about fate and free will? And we actually kind of talked a little bit about this. I believe it was David Gilman or Aaron Zhu who kind of brought up some questions about that. Question number four. This Mishnah seems to state that if someone is bad now, they will be even worse later. But is that really true? That's question number one. What about the Jewish concept of tshuva that we talk about each year during Yom Kippur? Tshuva, right, means that you can kind of say you're sorry to people, say you're sorry to God, and change your ways. Doesn't the idea of tshuva seem to fly in the face of this Mishnah? And then my last question is, why is the idea of tshuva not even part of the thought process here? Why? What do you think? Okay. Now, our Mishnah says something very specific about when we judge someone about who they are and what they will be in life. But now I want to look at another piece of Torah, a very famous piece of Torah, and Rashi's comment on that very famous piece of Torah. I think it's shown bigger in the next text. Yeah, here we go. So let's look at this. This is the story of Rabbi of Yishmael, and we're kind of pitting our Mishnah versus story of Ishmael. So Ishmael will kind of bring us another answer. So Sarah said to Abraham, cast out that slave woman. This is back in the beginning of the Torah, right? She has just given birth to Yitzchak, and Ishmael, of course, Abraham's other son, with Hagar, is also around. Sarah turns to Ishmael and Hagar and says, cast out that slave woman and her son. But this matter distressed Abraham greatly. But God said to Abraham, whatever Sarah tells you, do as she says. The next morning, Abraham took some bread and water and gave them to Hagar. He placed them over her shoulder and together with the child and sent her away. She wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was gone from the skin of kind of like the canteen, she left the child under one of the bushes. She went and sat down at a distance, and she thought, let me not look on as the child dies, and she burst into tears. God heard the cry of the boy, And an angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has listened to the cry of the child where he is." Okay. So first of all, what do you think? What is Rashi? What words do you think Rashi might be commenting on here? Okay. You can give maybe three different ideas, okay, if you want, or one, whatever. Okay, so here's where Rashi is looking. Rashi is looking at these words where he is. What do you think Rashi's asking? What do you think Rashi's kasha here, or koshi here? Okay, and here's Rashi's koshi. What does the phrase "where he is" mean? Right, you don't necessarily need those actually. Where fear God, for God has listened to the cry of the boy. What is "where he is"? That's like milim nosafot. It's added words. What is that all about? And here's Rashi's comment. What does the phrase "where he is" mean? Here's what it means. He is judged according to the thing that he has done until now, and not according to the thing that he will do in the future. Since there were angels that of God that complained, "You are giving water to the guy whose descendants will one day kill Jewish children with thirst." And God replies to the angels, "Right now is Ishmael good or evil?" And they said to him, "Good." And God said to them, "According to his present deeds he will be judged." And this is why the Torah says where he is. All right, so who's correct, the Mishnah or the Rashi and Ra'an Yishmael? Right, our Mishnah says something very specific about, right, and how is this comment by Rashi a contradiction to that? And which do you think is correct? Okay. So, again, let me just ask the question one more time just to make sure everyone understands. Why is it that we would kill him and make him kill him before he's actually guilty? Because if he's guilty, where is he going to spend more time? And by killing him, we're doing him some type of we're doing him some type of favor. And what is that favor? Okay. And obviously, that favor is very dependent upon our believing in there being an olam haba, in there being an afterlife, and hoping that that life is really good there, and are believing that the worst place ever you can be, much worse than the worst things on this earth, is this place called Gehenna, which maybe you could kind of call purgatory or something like that. Maybe that's how it is in like the Christian world. All right, so we are getting very close to the end of our study. And now that we've finished our study of all the Mishnayot dealing with the subject of Ben Sira Moreh, I'd like you now to go back and look again at the 5 characters from the beginning of the unit that you judge as being Chayav or Patur. At the point when you were judging these 5 characters, you only knew what the Torah said about it being a stubborn and rebellious child. Now that you've learned the 5 Mishnayot, judge the characters once again. According to our Mishnah, to the Mishnayot that we've studied, are they guilty or not? And I'm going to give you I'm going to go really quickly through the different Mishnayot that we studied. Uh, ah, sorry about that, everyone. I remember this is the Talmud. I just want you to look at the Mishnah. Oh, here. Okay, so here's Mishnah number 1, right in the middle there. Good. Going out to Mishnah number 2. So Talmud, 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 Talmud. Mishnah number 2 is right here. Mishnah number 3. Oh no, that's still my Mishnah number 2. Sorry. Mishnah number 3. Mission number 4. Nope. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Mission number 4. Mission number 5. No, I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, no, mission number 4. Sorry. And then the one we had today, mission number 5. So again, okay. So let's go look at our 2. Oh, that's one too. So here we go. Okay, here we go. So, number one, chayav or patur and why. Number two, chayav or patur and why. Number three, chayav or patur and why. Number four, chayav or patur and why. Number five, chayav or patur and why. And that's it. All right. Good luck, everyone.